Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Not a Let's Play. This is a new series that I'll be working on. My name is Pondan, and I'm joined today by Bloopy, creator of the Fire Emblem 8 ROM hack Faith and Blood. Had the pleasure of playing this back at FEE3 back in 2018 and have followed it since and have played what's currently available, about 7 chapters. And so excited to have Bloopy here on the show today to chat a little bit about his experience and just learn a little bit more about the man behind the ROM. So, Bloopy, welcome.
Hey, how's everyone doing? I'm Bloopy, and that was a really long intro. Jeez.
Sorry, man. When you do radio in college, you start to develop a knack for long-winded
Yeah,
intros.
I feel like you told me that before, but I think I forgot.
Yeah, I used to. I think I credit my ability to use a microphone to running a college radio station, but that's besides the point. Uh,
Well, hey, this isn't about you. This is about me.
yeah, this isn't this. You're not interviewing me. I mean, you're more than welcome to turn this around on me if you want, but let's um let's get into
I
it.
have you.
So, what I want to do, and for all of our viewers, because this is going to be a new show, this will be the first one that goes up. Basically, what I want to do is create like small profiles in the ROM hacking community of the people behind the ROM hacks. There's a lot of really exciting stuff coming out, and it's a very wonderful time to be a Fire Emblem fan. And so, I think, given the community and that there's always new people coming in and people who are needing help and everyone's very collaborative, I think it's really good to have insights from people who have different takes, different experiences, share their thoughts, share their advice, and talk a little bit about what they're working on. So, Bloopy, I feel like the first question that anyone's ever going to ask is, how did you get into Fire Emblem? Kind of what was your introduction? How'd you start getting into it?
Never played Fire Emblem on an actual console before high school. And what happened is that I downloaded a GBA emulator on my phone. I was looking for games to play. I ran into Fire Emblem 7 as one of the popular ones that were downloaded. So I booted it up, gave it a shot, and as soon as I saw Lynn, I knew this was the franchise for me.
That's pretty cool. That's such a new school approach to learning about Fire Emblem. It makes me feel very old because like ROM, I felt like playing a ROM like when I was in high school is like kind of like a new thing. Like computers were just getting powerful enough to do that, so that's pretty cool. You were playing on your phone. And how did that first run of FE7 go? Did you have to restart at any point? Did you get all the way through?
I think I remember making it through Lynn mode, and I was like, oh, cool. I'm like halfway through the game, right? And it just switches to completely new characters, and I was like, what's going on?
Dude, it's so confusing the first time through when there's that sudden change and you're like, "Oh, the game isn't over."
Exactly.
And so would you say that I feel like FE7 it's such a good game to be introduced to with the tutorial and just like the general lack of difficulty on normal mode, especially once you know what you're doing. Would you say that FE7's your favorite game, or what would you say is your favorite vanilla game?
My favorite game would probably be Binding Blade FE6. Which funny enough is like one of the last ones I played.
What
Usually
about
the
it?
way it goes is that like the first play is your favorite, but FE6 I just like really love like the map design, the difficulty, the balance. I think it just feels great to play, in my opinion.
Yeah, I get what you mean. I think FE6 for me, like, and I'm curious if you agree, I find that it has some really nice maps that are super fun to play, and I'm excited to play them every time. And then there are other maps that I just like groan at and I want nothing to do with. But I feel like the good outweighs the bad for the most part.
Yeah, I mean, there's some pretty bad guidance in there too, but let's not talk about those.
Yeah, I know. It's like I kind of wish I could play without the guidance and still get the good ending in the extra chapters, but hey, that's how it goes.
Mecca's video on Shanna made me appreciate the game a lot more because I started using like some what I thought were like suboptimal units, and they opened up a lot of strategy for me, especially in the early game.
Totally, yeah. I think for me as well, like the first couple of times I watched like some of Mecha's videos about just gameplay, kind of changed my perspective about a lot of different unit types and looking at units that I would have overlooked otherwise. Because I totally was the type who would never like, especially in like a game like FE6 or FE7, I'd like never want to use Marcus because he's going to steal all my experience and make it impossible for me to finish the game. But then kind of hearing a different perspective on why these characters are good was pretty insightful. So it's interesting seeing like how,
Walked into the light.
yeah, exactly, walking into the light, but also seeing how you learn to appreciate different units and not like only evaluate them by like what they're going to be doing at end game. So kind of with that, so you got started working playing. I said working playing um, FE7 on your phone, playing some other ROMs. How did you decide to get into ROM hacking? What was your intro there?
That's kind of like a big bridge, but I guess I'll go over it. So I was still playing on my phone when I went from FE7 to FE8. I played a bit of FE8, but I never really completed it. And then after like those year or two, like back in like high school, I kind of like stopped for a while. I kind of forgot about Fire Emblem. I was going on with my life. And then I saw a little game called Fire Emblem Awakening becoming popular, and I just like came back to me. So I had a 3DS at the time, and I got that game, and I played it, and I was just, like totally in love with like FE Awakening, all that. It's like way back when it came out, and then that just got me into like trying to find other ROM hacks and like other like fan creations. I heard about The Last Promise, never played it. I couldn't figure out how to patch it back then. So the first one I actually played was FE7X because you didn't have to use any patching for that.
Very
After
cool.
playing FE7X, like such a great quality fan game. And that was back when there was only Uther's Route. So it was basically complete in terms of like a story. It was like front to back, a little like 8 chapter Uther game. It was just like super great. And then I was just like hooked from there.
Yeah, that FE7X I think is it's one that I've been following for a long time, and it's something that I find it's always like easy to go back and to play in the way the units are designed and just the general length. It's like a perfect like little. It's I mean it feels like a full game, even though it's not. But yeah, just super well crafted. And so kind of with that then, so what kind of made you take the plunge? Kind of what was the impetus for Faith and Blood? Kind of how did you decide to start working on that?
Oh, jeez. All right. Blood is kind of the result of several ideas and things I've thought of over playing Fire Emblem. Like, Fire Emblem sucks. So when I play it, I'm like, this sucks. I want to make my own that doesn't suck. And then I basically like gathered up these like few ideas over the years, wrote some of them down, didn't write others down. And eventually kind of just like built up in my mind enough where it was like a concrete thing that I wanted to do. But I never really actually started on it, even though I was following the community for a while until Builder came out. And then after Builder came out, I started just like actually making these ideas happen. And I was like, oh yeah, yeah, this is happening.
Very cool. And so kind of maybe this is a spoiler, but why Faith and Blood? What's the does the name have any particular meaning? Is it going to play a role in the story?
That's classified. Sorry.
No worries, but that's cool. Yeah, and I think and I think for me it's quite similar. Like Builder just opens up a world to people who wanted to make hacks and had ideas, but didn't necessarily have the means to do it, whether being intimidated by using Nightmare and Feditor and all of this kind of crap. Builder really is a powerful piece of
Yeah.
technology. But when it
I
comes,
remember or I saw some of Gas old tutorials for some like the old hacking programs. And I started getting into that, but that was also when I was like a bit younger and it was more complicated and that just didn't stick with me.
yeah,
Probably because
totally.
I'm dumb, but that's how it do be like that.
Dude, it's hard. It's not an easy thing. But when it came to so you have this idea, you have the means to build it. I guess when you're thinking about your design, and I think this is something that comes up quite a lot in the community. Especially if you're a first time hacker. I think people are concerned with what is my order of operations? How should I think about designing the game? I guess for you, as you were building Faith and Blood, what would you say was your design philosophy and also your process for building it out?
describe my process, I'd probably have to say rough outlines, very rough outlines. Thinking of an idea you want to accomplish, then refining it down into like the most basic part of that and just making that good. I'd say that's pretty much what I do with all my ideas and chapters. I basically write something rough out or like draw out like a rough map. And like the important part is not getting attached to the map because you're gonna change it a lot. So you really just have to be open to like testing what works and testing what doesn't, and being able to take these ideas, put them in like a line, play them until like you think they kind of flow together, and just like break them down even more into like the most base element, and just like kind of refine it into something that you think is good. That's
Totally.
it.
Yeah, no, that makes complete sense. So you do you usually so it sounds like you had the idea first for the story. Did you kind of have this general outline and then go in directly to making maps? Did you have sort of story chapter by chapter outline with story and then went for the map? I guess did you do gameplay first or story first kind of on a more like chapter level?
Riza is gonna hate me for saying this, but I was story first. I wrote like a bunch of story ideas down in like a Google Doc, and at that point I knew I kind of wanted it to be a Fire Emblem game, so I even wrote them out chapter by chapter. And in my Discord, your nickname is Pandan with a parentheses axe afterwards. That's because the very first docs, I didn't know what any of the names were, so I would just have like the description of the character and their weapon in like all caps after it. So every time like say Landon was brought up, it would just be like main lord Lance, and then just be like main lord Lance talks to bastard Axe about blank, and I don't know. It was just a pretty raw story that I wanted to do. Once I got into FE Builder, started doing maps for it, pretty much rewrote most of it to fit, but it was story first.
Yeah, no, and I think that's a good approach. I mean, maybe I'm biased because I did something very similar when I started as well. Was lay it out like chapter by chapter what should happen, what's the general idea for the game. But I think the really important piece there, and I think for a lot of people who are starting, is not getting too attached to the first draft. Like the first draft of your map is never going to be the best. You'll very rarely get it right on the first try. I mean, are there maps that you've done like over and over again that have like multiple iterations already?
All of them.
Yeah, yeah. Would you? How many? What was? I guess which chapter have you redone the most since starting?
That's a tricky question. Um, I'd say the chapter that I'm currently trying to finish up right now, which is chapter 2.1, is like super complicated, and I've had to like revamp it several times, but no one has even seen that chapter yet. Of part one, the ones that like people have actually seen, probably be I don't know. Probably I've worked on a lot of them. Maybe 1F, because 1F, the enemy placements and all that stuff took a lot of messing around because the fog makes it really hard to balance. So just trying to work that out and make that actually good took a while.
Yeah, Fog of War is always tricky because I think so much of the difficulty in Fog of War is not knowing what's in the fog. And when you're playtesting your own game and you know where all the enemies are and kind of where all the gotchas are, it makes it a little bit harder to test because you know what's there. So you have to try and put yourself into the player's shoes as much as possible, even though that can be pretty difficult when you know exactly what's going on.
I've actually had an idea of doing a challenge run where I play Iron Man and no status screen, where I'm not allowed to check any items or stats or anything. Just go off my memory and see if I can't remember everything enough to beat it.
That's pretty cool. I feel like you'd have to try so hard to not just instinctively check status screens and stuff like that. It would be, I mean, I guess if you have like the modular mini box, then you might be able to see some stuff. But if you don't,
Planning on adding a bit later. It's not like a super big priority in development right now. Like personally, I don't think it adds that much, and it takes up like the default options take a bit too much off of the screen. So if I wanted to do that in the future, it would take a little bit of effort into like making it into what I want to make it. And I kind of want to get more done first before I really focus on it.
Yeah, no, that completely makes sense. And I guess kind of with that in mind, when it comes to, you know, actually designing the game and the sort of gameplay, I think one of the things just in the community more broadly that's exciting right now is that there's so many different takes on Fire Emblem and sort of people drawing in different elements from different games that they really like. Like I think, we talked about Scryza before, but Souls of the Forest is just so intensely player phase oriented, very difficult, like a super high bar, very gameplay oriented. And then you have something like The Heroes We Deserve, which is super humorous. It's a bit different. It's a bit zany. Very different feel, and from a game perspective too, just very different. So I guess like for you, were there specific points of inspiration, or talk to me a little bit more about like the kind of feel you were going for in your game? Were there certain games that were really um, inspirational, I suppose, when you were thinking about like this is what a good game will feel like for me?
Question. That's a good question. Um, I would say I draw a lot of like what I want to achieve with tone. I don't want to say Dark Souls, but like little bit Dark Souls in there. I kind of love that kind of grim, dark, serious atmosphere.
Mm-hmm.
Um, CK2, Crusader Kings, like the kind of politics and like mischievery that you can accomplish in there, kind of like showed me what I can do with like politics and characters, and having like a realistic like weight behind stuff makes it feel a lot better. Um, what else? I'd say like maybe some classic RPGs, but I don't know, not a lot come to mind besides like those two.
And from
Like
a
it's kind of like a more serious tone, I guess, but still fun gameplay.
totally, yeah, and I can totally see that with kind of the way the story is shaping up and just sort of the way that there's this like I mean, I definitely feel it like when I'm playing Faith and Blood, there's just sort of this like menacing, like shit is about to hit the fan, and you're kind of just like waiting for it to happen because the player knows what like Grundaf, for example, doesn't know, and there's just so much weight behind all of the
Yeah,
actions and the interactions between the characters because the player's in on the
there's
secret that would change the dynamic completely on screen.
these elements all purposely introduced early in the game, build them up with each part, and they're gonna have big payoffs later.
For
But
sure.
that's a bit of a spoiler.
Well, I'm
I
looking
mean, it's not really a spoiler, but
well, I'm looking forward to seeing it
color
through.
anyone's expectations.
For sure. But I guess more on the gameplay side too, were there specific Fire Emblem games that you know, from a gameplay perspective that you really resonated with, that you really liked, that you wanted to try and emulate a bit in your own game?
FE6 for sure. Basically, what I was going for with my game was like FE6 with like more compact, interesting maps, basically. Um, Also a bit of, I mean, I haven't played much of Thracia. What I have played, I'm loving so far. So I definitely expect that to have some influence on how I design things from here out.
Totally. Yeah. I can see that too. Um, I think one of the things that Thracia does really well is there's just so many interesting options for the player on player phase to consider. And because
You
this
have, I
oh,
mean,
yeah, go ahead.
implement all these, but you have like capture and steal like items and weapons. Like just being able to steal mages' tomes in that game is so cool. Like thieves are just completely nullifying an entire enemy unit.
Yeah,
It's crazy.
it's pretty wild and super different. So it's cool to get a sense of that, and kind of your thought process there. And I guess kind of similarly, I know you and I have talked about it, but I feel like always like the elephant in the room with hacking is, the FE8 skill system. It's so pervasive in so many projects, and I feel like you go on the FEU Discord and you go into like the meta and design channel, and it's like always these people like debating like what skills should I give this unit, and it's like I'm gonna give them like Rally Spectrum because I think it's neat, and it's like oh my god, this is so unbalanced. Kind of talk
I
about
hate
like
skills.
yeah, talk about your thoughts on skills, and I think how to make skills work because I think Faith and Blood, I think you take the skill system and kind of mute it down to a point where it adds nice flavor, it adds some variation, but it's not overbearing and creating this sort of like um, everything procs and kills things in one hit sort of experience that like happens in like Fates, for example. So talk to me a little bit about your thought process there.
Thing I did was like remove all proc skills because they're dumb. Like this doesn't add a lot, in my opinion, when you have to have this like 4% chance is like instantly destroying an enemy. Like the enemy just doesn't have anything like that. It's just a bit weird, funky. I guess like it can be balanced out with having like tough enemies and better challenges, but I wanted to make a skill system that basically enhanced vanilla and added more to it without detracting from that kind of vanilla feel in a way. So the big like thing that made me use the skill system was the Fey map skills, all the reposition, swap, shove stuff. Everyone loves shove. I just love using those map skills, so I thought a good way to implement the skill system would be to give like each class a kind of movement type based on their movement skill, or different units have like swap, shove, whatever, all that. And it adds a lot of like variance and different aspects of balance that kind of help positioning, but also don't like destroy what makes vanilla vanilla, I guess.
Sure, it's like vanilla with all of the stuff from like it's like vanilla GBA with like all of like the stuff that was kind of vanilla in other games like Shove and Tellius or like Swap and stuff like that.
Skills, but personal skills, I didn't want to be like a super defining aspect. It's more just like a quirk or like a trait of the character that gives like a little bonus to help out. And balancing those are a bit trickier just because I can't, well, at this moment, I'm not great at implementing custom skills. So I'm a bit limited in that regard and how to decide on which units get which skills. But overall, I try to make it in a way that each unit has a little something that makes them unique without making them broken.
Sure, yeah, and that totally makes sense, and I agree. I think that's a good approach because it's so easy for a unit to just become defined by whatever skill that they are given, and especially given that I think the skill system, the way it was built, and a way a lot of like, if you're just implementing the skill system and aren't editing anything, like you said, the numbers are big because it's like being ripped right from Fates, which is like operating on a very different sort of stat spread than what you're seeing in GBA. So it just like the numbers just get super big super quickly. So totally agree.
Um, red at plus 10 defense.
Yeah, yeah. Armored Blow with plus 10 defense is a little insane for GBA, especially like your prologue or something like that.
A player phase, man.
Yeah, got it. It's all about player phase. But let's see. So kind of as you've gone through, like I think you and I both started our projects around the same time. So a little, probably a year, close to a year and a half at this stage since we first started. But as far as like, what have you learned? Like, what would you say is like one of your biggest learnings from creating the hack? Did you find that like you got just like much better at designing maps? Did you, kind of change some of your notions about design? What are some of your thoughts there on like how you've improved over time and what's kind of been a big learning for you?
Changed is coming to appreciate reinforcements a lot more. Earlier, I kind of depended a lot on map enemies, and this affected some of the flow of the maps. And now, when I'm like coming back and reworking everything, a big thing I've been implementing are swapping up enemies with like reinforcements, making it so that like the map is a bit more dynamic in that sense. That there's more moving elements and more different choices and paths rather than just like a strict like here you are, here the enemies go. It's trying to make each map have like moving parts, moving enemies, and reinforcements was like a big part in helping me adjust to like designing that.
Lots of ambush spawns, right? Just like FE6.
No, no, please. This is a lie. They're not, don't spread this information.
No, there are no ambush spawns in Faith and Blood. I can guarantee that. But kind of now that like your project's been out now for a while, you're actively working on part two. You've gotten some attention. I know, and myself, and I know Warpath has streamed it. Just your thoughts on the reception so far. I mean, I feel like when you're creating something, it's hard to not have an idea of like I think people will perceive it like X or they will play it like Y and have this sort of feeling or experience with the game. What surprised you about the general reception? What was satisfying about that? Talk to me a little bit more about your thoughts there.
Might sound a little vain, but I was kind of surprised at how positive it was. I'm usually like pretty harsh on my own stuff, so by the time I release it to other people, it's been through like several revisions that I have only seen. So when people actually like saw the FEE3 demo, they saw like the first release, a lot of people gave me like really positive feedback, and there wasn't a lot of like criticism I could work with, which made me feel pretty good. But then I also was like, wait, what do I do now? I guess I just keep doing the same thing, right? And as I kept going, I actually got some more useful criticism, more things I could actually work with, and that kind of gave me a better idea of how to continue. Specifically, Warpath stream was like really helpful and like helping me decide what I wanted to change. And yeah, I guess that sums it up.
Yeah, totally. And I think with like a chapter or two, like it's you're getting such a small taste that it's hard to say like where are you trying to go with this at that point. I think like after having played through
It's
seven
hard to
chapters, it was easier for me to go and say, here, I think these are some things you could change or would help make the story flow better. When it's only like one or two chapters, it's really hard to say like, well,
three 2 chapter demo. It was just people saying, "Oh yeah, this looks pretty good," and that was like it. And I was like, "Oh, okay.
for
I guess I'll just keep doing it."
sure. No, that's so true. Well, it's nice. It's definitely rewarding when you put your stuff through the ringer, like you said, and you've made a ton of revisions, and then people like it. But on the flip side, it's like you want something more actionable to improve that experience. And I think I feel like any like Fire Emblem game, like when it's first released, everyone's like, "This is great. This gameplay is so fun," and then after a while, like people really analyze it and are like, "Actually, I would change all of these things about it now that I can look at it more critically."
God, it sounds like awakening.
Yeah, exactly. Uh, exactly like that. So, we've talked about this a little bit kind of in the future now. So you have the first part is out. You're going back and making some edits to that, going in and like polishing up some stuff. What's next? Can you give the audience a bit of a teaser for what to expect?
Two, baby. Yeah, that's pretty. It's big part two. Part two is gonna be big. It's gonna most chapters, promotions, tons of new units. It's making me want to die. So it's gonna be fun for you once I finish it.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to playing it, man. That should be a lot of fun. How many chapters do you think it'll net out to be?
Gonna be 7 chapters, but it's like seven like full length chapters. Like part one, you had the prologue. You had like the first couple chapters, which were like 5 unit maps. This is like full big, like 12-ish unit player units. About is what I tried to go for maps, and they're just oof, oof. They're gonna be oof in a good way, in a bad way.
Lots of oof. Yeah, yeah, no, that's good. I think to your point, like 12 units, I think is like just like the right amount for like mid to late game. Maybe some maps you might want to do 14 to 16 units, but I think 12 is like a nice amount of units
But
to
don't go
command.
because that might change.
Don't go what?
Go quoting me on that either, because that might change as well.
Oh, for sure, for sure. I'm just speaking more broadly from experience, and especially like
Is more balanced anyway. Let's bring it right back to how it started.
yeah, yeah, exactly. But cool, man. So kind of as we getting close to wrapping it up, who else should we thank for your project's creation? I know you're leading, writing, and you're obviously doing all the development on your own. Are there other folks that have helped you along the way? Who do you want to give a shout out to?
Certain Kami by the name of Skryza, who helped a lot, especially with music and design. Even like just playing SOTF made me a bit more cognizant of my own design and what I wanted to balance things. I think he was like the closest I had to like a team member, because even though the project is still solo, he gives me like midis like every week. They're insane and they're all amazing. So he's basically a music member. Besides him, I would have to say Laurent, doing the art for Landon and Elias. Um, those are like the two biggest thanks I have to give.
Yeah, no, they're both great and they've helped me out a lot too. So very cool. Good to give them a shout out. And then kind of looking outside. So I think it's always interesting to hear. It's kind of like when you ask a musician, like, what albums are you listening to? I guess for you, Bloop, like, what other hacks out there or fan games do you think, or do you really enjoy? Are you excited about? Just talk to me a little bit about that.
One that I'm most excited about is this small hack by a devoted creator called Thracia776 with that new translation patch. So I'm pretty excited to finish Kaga's true vision. Although I guess that would even wouldn't be Thracia. I would have to go play TRS after it.
And I think you'll appreciate TRS after, especially after playing Thracia. TRS, I like to call it's Kaga Unchained. It's just Kaga without any notions of you know the reins that IS would put on him. It's so out there. But
That sounds amazing and horrifying at the same.
it's pretty cool. I haven't beaten it yet. I started it a while ago and then I kind of just like dropped it after a while. It's a long game, and because it's on PS1, it's like Path of Radiant speed. It's kind of slow to move through, but
Oh yeah.
it's fun and there's a ton of units, so you can experiment a lot, which is neat. But other than our Lord and Savior Kaga, are there other hacking projects that you've been following or particularly interested in that you want to give a shout out to?
I mean, Heroes We Deserve literally has me in it. So I guess I'm watching that one. Um, Souls of the Forest, like we said, brought it up several times. It's just like such a big presence in the fan game community because it's so good. It's like so insanely polished and balanced. That's just an experience, man. Still got to complete that one.
Yeah, that one's it's a doozy, man. It is an absolute doozy. But yeah, no, I totally agree. They're both really good projects. But cool, man. This has been a lot of fun. We're just like hitting around like the 32-minute mark here. Anything else that you want to share or just say anything to the viewers before we wrap up?
Stay tuned for more. Part two, baby. It's coming.
I'm not gonna ask for a release date because I don't want to make you commit to that because that's gonna be a bad idea. But
I wouldn't give you.
awesome. Well, Bloopy, thank you again for joining us. To the viewers out there, hopefully you enjoyed listening to the first episode of what I think I'm gonna call this series "Base Conversations" because it has to have a Fire Emblemy title, and everyone likes the base from Tellius.
Podcast,
What'd you say? You came in a little unclear
or is
there.
that support? I don't know. Or
I totally didn't capture any of that. Could you say that again?
sorry. I feel like Base Conversations was the name of Mang's or someone else's streams. Although that might be like support conversations. I feel like base has been used before.
Well, maybe we can call it we can call it based conversations. I feel like that might be better.
Yeah, sure.
We'll go with that. We'll thank the base god for that one. But anyway, guys, thank you again for watching, and Bloopy, thank you again for joining me. This was a lot of fun. Thanks for sharing your
Smash,
thoughts,
like, subscribe,
and I will see you guys next time.
subscribe, all over the place.
Liking and subscribing. Oh man, mash that like button. So funny. Shilling for likes. But anyway, thanks again for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Take care.
Hey, everyone.